2, 1. What is up, people? We are back. We recorded a way too long video, so we're going to do this one short. Ryan?
Nomal?
And we're talking Joe Biden's speech. Now, Joe Biden had a good speech. It came together well, and he said a lot of good things, but we were worried about the actions speak louder than the words premise because he says these things, he does the opposite, or he doesn't do them at all. Now, Tim Scott, Republican senator from South Carolina.
Right. Yeah, he had a response to Biden's speech, and I think it might have been even better.
I think so.
Than the actual speech. And mind you, the speech was actually really good. Biden's speech, I mean. But his rebuttal was pretty good as well, even though I don't know, I feel like the left side just didn't agree with whatever Tim Scott was saying, but I feel like they also might have not watched even the video.
Well, we saw, what was it? Was that NBC?
Yeah, MSNBC, yes.
And we had the news anchor responding into it, saying how he's racist and he is the true problem and all this stuff.
When Uncle Tom and all that stuff.
She didn't actually use any examples from the speech. She just called him a clown.
Yeah.
Now, it was a great rebuttal because he's 100% right. He says that Biden has been more divisive than unifying.
So
this
far.
This is completely true because Joe Biden has no bipartisan support at all. The Republicans cannot seem to work with him. When Democrats were able to work with Donald Trump, you had Tim Scott, who has proposed the Justice Act, which we covered in 2 videos already.
Which they shut down.
Which was shut down by Democrats, even though he compromised with them on the bill itself.
Right.
So there's kind of like a stubbornness from the Democrats when they've worked with the Republicans in the past. And I don't think Republicans are being stubborn. I think that Joe Biden has just not earned that bipartisanship.
Right. And then he's trying to... So since he hasn't earned it, he's now trying to just force his way into it with the court packing and the D.C. statehood. And what was the third thing we just talked about in another video?
D.C. filibuster.
And the filibustering as well.
And other things too, which we'll get into. And the idea is that just because your bills are not getting bipartisan support doesn't mean you need to force them through. You compromise until you get that. And that's kind of what Tim Scott is saying. He says that one thing I loved about Tim Scott in this, and this is something that I have been waiting for a Republican to speak about for a while, is that you have from the conservative side when we talk about the issues with Black America, and one of the main things we talk about is the fatherhood rate. That in 1965 you had 25% of kids growing up without a father, and now you have this incentivizing and subsidizing of single motherhood, and now today you have
2 Democratic policies.
Yeah, you have 70% of Black kids grow up without a father. Tim Scott kind of shouted out to single mothers. He said, "You're doing a great job. It's worth it." And I've been waiting because if we talk about this single motherhood thing because it is a culture issue, but there's never a shout out to those single mothers because it has to be insanely difficult.
Absolutely.
To raise kids like that.
Being a single parent under any grounds is difficult.
Exactly. And 70% of these situations are occurring right now. So he shouted out single mothers in the African American community, which was, I like that a lot. I've been waiting for someone to say that for a long time. He's talking about school choice. So school choice is the idea that you don't have to go to a school in your zip code. So like I used to live here, and there's a school right down the street, and I used to have to go there. That was my zone school.
Oh, like designated zones.
Yeah, so that's what you have in America right now. And the thing is that when you grow up in these communities that are underfunded, and we spoke about policies hurting African Americans, and you have these schools that are not the best schools, you're forcing these kids to go to those schools.
Yeah, and it's just an inevitable cycle where you have low income areas, and then low income areas produce less funding for those public schools, and then less public schools care about your child's education.
Look at the
statistics goes into a cycle from there.
In California and different places in New York where you look at the African American literacy and mathematics rate, and it's abysmal. There's 4-year gaps between white kids and Black kids because of this policy.
Yeah.
There's 85% illiteracy rates and mathematic insufficiency rates in some of these places in California. The schools aren't funded, but you're forcing African Americans. It's racist.
Yeah, and if you're willing to just go out of your area and then go to a better school, I don't see why you shouldn't be able to. It's just those policies that are really detrimental to, especially the education of their youth.
Democratic policy too.
Yeah.
You have, talking about the bipartisanship, and COVID was completely partisan. Infrastructure has no Republican support. And you had the 5 bills last year. Some of them got 90 votes in the Senate.
Yeah.
But these are Trump bills about COVID relief and about different things. And he spoke about the fact that you have the Democrat. One thing Biden talked about is he kind of wants to fund kids from kindergarten to college. You had community college funding, and you have funding for kindergarten. And Tim Scott spoke is that the American dream is about that choice, is that you can go and do your own things. And
like we were just saying, you can't have a policy that mitigate or restrict the amount of options you have.
Exactly, yeah. And just like the idea of critical race theory and the idea that you're teaching these kids that America is racist and that if you're white people, you're oppressing just subconsciously.
Yeah.
Like you're just oppressing people without even trying to do it. And if you're Black, or any minority, Asian or brown or anything, you're being oppressed. Even if you're not experiencing it in that moment, you are being oppressed by something.
Yeah, and he brought it back to where like racism was very prevalent, and he stated that based on your color of your skin, you were determine how worth it you are, or how much you value your society, right? And now, throughout the Civil Rights Acts and everything, now in today, the modern age, we're still basing it on skin, and now we're telling white kids they're the oppressor.
Exactly, and what he said was that you can't treat discrimination with more discrimination. And the idea from the left is that I've heard kind of absurd things that we can get into later, that racism is power plus privilege. So like you can't be white and be racist. Like you can't be racist against a white person because they have power and privilege. And there's this whole premise of reverse racism, which is somehow justified, but racism is racism. Racism is discrimination against someone because of their skin color. There's no like reverse or backwards way to do it. It's just, and this is what Tim is saying, is that
it's more so like semantics, I think.
Yeah.
And it's just changing the definition of racism to, kind of like support an agenda, I'd say.
Exactly. And basically the premise of Tim Scott's rebuttal is that you need to just take Biden's words at face value. Actions are speaking louder than words with this president like crazy. You had Donald Trump, who his actions spoke just as loudly as his words because his words were loud and his actions were loud. You have Biden, who his words are loud yesterday, but his actions are subtle and they're sneaky and we don't see them. So that's basically all that Senator Scott was saying. Senator Scott's awesome.
Yeah, and if you haven't checked out the rebuttal, I definitely highly suggest you do so. But first, just watch Biden's speech as well. That was also a great speech, is that, there are a lot of problems that we brought up in the previous video we just recorded. But after you watch that, watch Tim Scott's rebuttal and then see what he had to say. Yeah,
because Tim Scott is just saying that there's all these issues, and these are Biden's answers, but these aren't really Biden's answers, and this is what we should really focus on. I wish he could run for president, but he says he's not going to. So, I mean, good rebuttal, good speech, but you got to watch it and make the decisions for yourself.
Yeah, and he had some valid points, and don't let, one side, tip you off to another, So just watch it, make your own thoughts, and try to understand, because I think a lot of the problems that we do have in this country is that we listen to reply, but we don't listen to understand, and try to understand what Tim Scott's saying.
Exactly. Politicians are great speakers, so we as the people just need to be better thinkers, because we need to be able to make these decisions for ourselves.
Yeah.
All right. Good?
Yeah, pretty much. Peace.
Short video. You're welcome.